Today's big news is about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their wide receivers. If you've missed it, here's what's going on. The Jaguars are letting go of Christian Kirk. It hasn't officially happened yet, but according to Adam Schefter and pretty much everyone online, it's happening. By releasing Kirk, the Jaguars will save $10.4 million in cap space for 2025. That's a lot of money. The Jaguars already had a good amount of cap room, and now, with this move, they'll have over $48 million in cap space for 2025. That's a ton to work with. And the best part? This team doesn't even need a full rebuild. They're already in good shape. They need a few things: a player to keep the quarterback safe, someone for the inside of the offensive line, and now, after letting Christian Kirk go, they definitely need another wide receiver to go with Brian Thomas Jr. Even though you're probably paying Gabe Davis this year, nobody's taking on that contract. It's smarter to keep him around and see if he can still help the team in some way. Last year, he didn't get many chances to show how good he is at blocking or catching long passes. But if he stays healthy, things could be different. 2025 might be the year he really shows what he can do. Keeping him on the team seems like the smart move, especially since letting him go wouldn't help at all. Having him on the team doesn't mean you shouldn't try to get a better receiver. I think the Jaguars should look for a player who can play both inside and outside. They should also think about adding a receiver in the draft. If the team gets a really good wide receiver early on, they probably won't pick another one in the first or second round of the draft. But they might still grab one later, maybe on day 2 or day 3, and work on helping that player improve over time. Some people say this year's draft doesn't have great receivers. I don't see it that way at all. Anyway, let's get to the point. Could Chris Godwin be the right fit for the Jacksonville Jaguars in free agency? Everyone's talking about trading for Cooper Kupp or DK Metcalf. But honestly, the smartest move might be signing someone like Godwin so the team doesn't have to lose any draft picks. The Buccaneers decided not to use the franchise tag on Chris Godwin. They missed the chance to do it. Chris Godwin should check out free agency to see what's out there. It's a good idea for him to wait and see what teams might offer before deciding anything. There's no need to rush and sign a deal before the legal tampering period starts, so he's got time to think it over. Chris Godwin should try to get the best deal he can right now, since this might be his last big one. Even though he hurt his ankle, he's still an awesome football player. He just turned 29 and had maybe the best season of his career before the injury. Chris Godwin would be awesome on the Jaguars. Moving from Tampa to Jacksonville is super easy since they're both in Florida. Plus, Coach Liam Cohen really helped Godwin do great. Before he got hurt, Godwin had an amazing season in just 7 games. He got 576 yards, scored 5 touchdowns, and averaged 11.5 yards every time he caught the ball. Most of the time with the Buccaneers, he played in the slot, and that's where he totally crushed it. Chris Godwin is a super dependable player who shines when it counts the most. He catches almost 60% of the really hard passes thrown to him. That's pretty awesome. Last season, he was great at picking up extra yards after catching the ball, adding about 7 extra yards each time. Godwin and the Jaguars would be a perfect match. Their coach, Liam Cohen, is really good at helping players get better and play their best. Plus, the team has enough money to bring him in. What makes Godwin special is that he can play in different spots. He's great in the slot or out wide. That kind of skill makes him a great pick for any team. Chris Godwin plays in the slot about half the time in his career. Last year, he played in the slot even more, about 62% of the time. That's exactly the kind of player the Jaguars might need. To make the offense better, he'd be a great fit alongside Brian Thomas Jr. or BTJ. BTJ can play in the slot too, so they'd work really well together. You'd have 2 guys with different strengths. BTJ is more of a deep ball guy who can do a little bit of everything. Chris Godwin is more about the short and mid-range plays, but he can do a bit of everything too. They'd make a great duo. Chris Godwin is really good at helping his teammates by blocking on screen plays. Picture this: Godwin is in the slot, Brian Thomas Jr. is on the outside, and they run a screenplay. Godwin jumps in to block, maybe with a little help from Britton Strange, and opens up space for Brian Thomas Jr. to make a huge play. Godwin is 29 now, and he's been super dependable his whole career. Every year, he plays great and never seems to have a bad season. Chris Godwin is one of the best players on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and has been really good for a long time. Since 2019, this is the first year he didn't get more than 114 passes thrown his way. The Bucs probably want to keep him, but the Jacksonville Jaguars might offer him a big deal that's hard to pass up. Looks like they think this is a smart idea. He's a really good player and works well with the team, especially since Liam Cohen's plan matches what Brian Thomas Jr. is great at. Plus, he already knows how the system works, which is super helpful. But they might still grab another wide receiver on day 2, just in case. The Jaguars might not make any big moves right now, but who knows what they'll do next. Some people think they should grab a good wide receiver in this draft. Maybe not in the first round, but in the second or third could be a smart idea. Now, about Chris Godwin. He's 29 and playing really well. He's super talented, strong, and doing a great job. But is he the guy for the long run? Nobody knows for sure. There's a lot to like about him, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. 2 good receivers on the team might not be enough later on. It's smarter to have 3 solid players to count on. Some people think Parker Washington could be that third guy, but Gabe Davis doesn't really seem like the right fit. There's some hope, but it's still not clear yet. The Jaguars have some choices to make. Brenton Strange looks pretty good and might turn into a solid player who can catch passes. But Chris Godwin seems like the best pick out of all the receivers people are talking about for the team. Chris Godwin is way better than Christian Kirk. Kirk is a good player, but Godwin has more talent and can make a bigger difference. The big question is how much he'd cost. Some people think spending up to $30 million on him could be worth it because of how much he could help a team. Nobody's really sure how much Chris Godwin will cost. Wide receiver contracts can be all over the place. Last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown got a $30 million deal. Chris Godwin looks just as good, but there are some differences. He's older than Amon-Ra and had an injury recently, while Amon-Ra is still in his mid-20s. Brandon Ayuk, who's 27, just signed a huge $30 million deal. That's a lot of money. I thought it might be around $25 to $30 million, so $30 million makes sense. With how the Jaguars' budget looks right now and the fact that the cap keeps going up every year, I'd say go for it. Plus, it's not like all $30 million hits the budget this year. It's spread out, so it doesn't take up a big chunk of money all at once. If you give him a $30 million per year contract, here's how it might break down. The Jaguars typically use 40% of the yearly contract amount as the first-year cap hit. So, if you sign him for 3 years at $30 million a year, that totals $90 million over the course of the deal. This structure allows them to manage their salary cap more strategically, spreading out the financial impact over the 3 years. Chris Godwin is a highly reliable and talented player who has proven his worth in the league. He's not only made the Pro Bowl, but he consistently delivers on the field, catching around 60 passes per season while bringing a steady presence to the offense. His current cost is about $12 million a year, which lines up roughly with the amount of money the team freed up when Christian Kirk left. By bringing Godwin on board, the Jaguars would not only be filling a gap, but upgrading their roster with a dependable, skilled receiver who can contribute immediately. Adding a player like Godwin could provide the team with the consistency and production they need to stay competitive and elevate their passing game. I'm super excited about this, totally pumped. I know I've said before that grabbing cheap receivers in the draft is a smart move because you get great value without breaking the bank. And yeah, I still think that's a great strategy, as I've mentioned before. But sometimes, if you're looking to win right now and really optimize your team's performance, you need to make a bold move. If you're focusing on getting the most out of Trevor Lawrence and building a powerful offense around him, I think Chris Godwin would be an incredible pick. He's reliable, consistent, and brings so much experience to the team. Pairing a rising quarterback like Lawrence with a proven receiver like Godwin could really help take the offense to the next level, especially in crucial games. What do you guys think about this? Do you agree, or do you have another player in mind who would be a better fit? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates and insights. Have an awesome day!